The day the widow Anna Merrick found the cowboy, dawn had barely broken across the plains. A faint silver line stretched along the horizon where the sun would soon rise. But most of the land remained swallowed in cold shadow. Anna was already outside, gathering the last of the firewood before the morning wind came. Her life these past 3 years had been defined by simple tasks: tending her goats, mending her fences, patching leaks in the roof, and praying that one day the land would finally give her more than dust. Poverty had become a steady companion, but loneliness was worse. After her husband died, she learned that silence had weight, a weight that pressed on the chest like a stone. Her farm sat along a scarcely used road, once busy with ranchers, miners, and drifters, before a newer route pulled most travelers elsewhere. So when she heard the faint sound of a horse's hooves somewhere beyond the dry brush, Anna stilled. Her first thought was danger. The plains had its share of thieves, liquor-soaked wanderers, and desperate men willing to take from anyone weaker than them. But the sound was unsteady, dragging, halting, almost pleading. A moment later, a horse emerged, ribs visible beneath a dusty hide, reins dangling uselessly. Draped across the saddle, like a forgotten sack of grain, was a man. Anna's breath caught. The horse stopped near her fence, as if it knew she would help. Maybe it sensed kindness. Maybe it sensed this was its last chance. The cowboy barely moved. His face was streaked with dirt and dried blood, his shirt torn near the shoulder where an ugly wound had soaked the fabric dark. His lips were split. His skin was fever-warm, even from a distance. Anna rushed forward without thinking, every instinct of caution overridden by the simple fact that this man was dying. "Sir?" she called softly. No answer. She touched his arm. He flinched, exhaled sharply, and slumped deeper. It took nearly all her strength to drag him down from the saddle. When his boots hit the ground, his knees buckled instantly. Anna eased him against her shoulder, and he groaned something that sounded like a name, but was too faint to catch. He was heavy, heavier than she expected, and she was small even by frontier standards. Each step toward her cabin felt like a battle, but she kept going, driven not by heroism, but by simple humanity. People had once helped her and her husband, back when life was kinder. You returned such kindness whenever fate allowed. Inside, she cleared the table with one sweep and guided him to lie across it. The cabin's dim light revealed more of the truth. The wound in his shoulder wasn't clean. It looked like a bullet had torn through and left fragments or dirt behind. Infections killed faster than bullets, this far from town. She swallowed hard. His breathing was shallow. Fever had already begun its steady climb. His boots were worn, his coat old but well made. His hands, calloused and scarred, told her he was used to hard work. Nothing about him indicated wealth or comfort. To Anna, he looked like any other cowboy trying to survive on a land that devoured the weak. She brought a basin of warm water, herbs, and the small tin of salve she'd learned to make during her husband's final months. Her hands trembled, not from fear, but from memory. She had nursed a dying man once before. She had failed. She would not fail again. When she began cleaning the wound, the cowboy stirred, eyes blinking open for the briefest moment. They were a striking storm gray, full of confusion and pain. "You're safe," she whispered, though she wasn't entirely sure it was true. "Lie still." He didn't respond, but his eyes softened as if he believed her. Maybe that was enough. He drifted back into unconsciousness. The next hour was a blur of work: boiling water, removing bits of cloth and dirt, stitching the torn skin, cooling his fever with wet cloths. Anna worked with the careful, practiced patience of someone who had learned medicine out of necessity, not skill. When the worst was done, she stepped back, exhausted. The cowboy lay still, breath uneven but stronger than before. She didn't know his name, where he came from, or what trouble he'd found, but she knew one thing. Without her, he would already be dead. Outside, the sun finally rose, stretching golden light across her fields. Birds began their morning chatter, and the earth warmed beneath the new day. But inside the cabin, a profound stillness remained, the stillness of a moment when fate quietly rearranges two lives. Anna poured herself a cup of the weak tea she favored when supplies were low. She sat near the bed, watching the cowboy with a mixture of worry and curiosity. His features, when free of strain, were younger than she first thought, perhaps late 20s. A thin scar crossed his jawline, his brow furrowed even in sleep. Whoever he was, whatever hunt or fight or accident had brought him to her doorstep, he was now her responsibility. She wondered if someone was searching for him. A wife? A family? A ranching crew? Someone would surely miss a man like him. But no matter how she turned the thought, nothing changed the truth. He was here, and she could not abandon him. As morning turned to afternoon, she fed the horse, then returned to tend her patient. Every hour, she checked his fever. Every few hours, she had him drink a little water with herbs, coaxing him gently from unconsciousness. Sometimes he murmured, but never clearly. By sunset, he seemed slightly better. Slightly, Anna sat beside him again. The lamplight glowed warm on his face. She touched his wrist to check his pulse. Suddenly, his eyes opened, clearer than before. He looked at her, truly looked, confusion and gratitude flickering in those gray depths. His lips parted. His voice, dry and cracking, barely managed a whisper. "Why? Help me." Anna blinked, surprised by the question, more surprised by how fragile his voice sounded. "Because you needed help," she answered simply. "And you came to my door." He stared at her for a long moment, as if her answer didn't quite make sense to him, as if he wasn't used to kindness. Then his eyes slipped closed again, but his breathing remained steady. It was the first sign, the very first, that he might live. Anna didn't know this man's past. She didn't know his destiny. She didn't know that somewhere far from her small cabin, a wealthy rancher with thousands of acres and a fortune hidden behind high stone walls was wondering where his only son had gone. She didn't know that by saving this stranger, she had just stepped into a story far bigger than her own. All she knew was that fate had placed a dying man in her care, and she would not let him die. The cowboy did not regain full consciousness for nearly 2 days. During that time, the cabin felt both too small and too full of worry. Anna rarely left his side, except to fetch water or tend the animals. Every cough, every fevered whisper, every tremor of pain made her heart tighten. She had lived 3 years in silence, but now the quiet was broken by the fragile sound of someone fighting their way back to life. His fever rose dangerously the second night. Anna worked relentlessly, placing cool cloths on his forehead, lifting him gently to help him sip water, whispering calm reassurances though she wasn't sure he could hear them. At one point, he muttered something that startled her. "Father, I'll fix it. I'll make it right." The words were raw, torn from a dream that clearly haunted him. She wanted to know what mistake he referred to, but she couldn't ask. Not yet. It wasn't her place to dig into the wounds of a man she barely knew. Her only duty, the one she had chosen, was to help him survive. By the next morning, the fever had broken. A thin sheen of sweat covered his skin, but his breathing had steadied. Anna felt relief rush through her so powerfully she had to sit down. She had fought for this man's life harder than she expected, harder than she meant to, harder than reason demanded. When he finally opened his eyes again, truly awake this time, they had lost that fever-glazed dullness. They were sharp now, watchful. "You're awake," Anna said softly, standing at the foot of the small bed where she had moved him the night before. He scanned the room, as if unfamiliar with the world around him. His gaze lingered on the patched roof, the rough wooden walls, the little stove that smoked when the wind blew wrong. A poor woman's home, but a clean one. Finally, his eyes settled on her. "You're the one who helped me," he said, voice gravel rough, but stronger. "I did what anyone would do." His brow lifted slightly. "Not anyone." She didn't respond. It was easier to look away than accept gratitude she didn't know how to carry. He shifted, winced, and gripped his shoulder. "How bad is it?" "Bad enough that you'd be dead if your horse hadn't brought you here," she replied. "You were shot." He inhaled sharply, but whether from pain or memory, she couldn't tell. "What happened?" she asked, before she could stop herself. His expression tightened. "Wrong place, wrong men, wrong time." It wasn't an answer, but she sensed pushing further would only shut him down. So she let silence settle between them. She brought him water. He drank greedily, then looked at her again with a strange mixture of caution and wonder. "You saved my life," he murmured, almost to himself. "Someone had to." His gaze softened. "What's your name?" "Anna Merrick." He nodded slowly. "I'm Nathan." Nathan. A simple name. A cowboy name. She repeated it quietly in her mind. Hours passed in slow rhythm. Nathan resting, Anna tending to chores, while keeping an eye on him. When she returned to check on him again, she found him staring at the ceiling, lost in thought. "Where am I?" he asked. 6 miles from Willow Bend," she said, "on the old West Road. Hardly anyone uses it anymore. That explains why no one's come after me." The words were too casual, as though he regretted survival more than danger. Anna lowered her head slightly. "If someone dangerous is looking for you," she said, "I need to know." Nathan shook his head. "They wouldn't come this far. They think I'm dead. Should I be worried?" He hesitated, long enough that she almost regretted asking. Then he answered, "No, you saved me. I won't bring trouble to your door." But there was something he wasn't saying, something deep-rooted, something heavy. Later that afternoon, when Anna brought him a bowl of broth, he surprised her by asking, "You live here alone?" She stiffened. "I manage." "That wasn't the question," she sighed. "My husband died 3 years ago. Fever. I stayed because, well, where else would I go? This land was all we had." Nathan watched her with a quiet intensity, as if trying to understand the shape of her life by studying her face. "Must be hard," he said. Anna shrugged. "Hard is still living." For a long moment, he didn't speak. Instead, he reached for the bowl she held and offered a faint, grateful smile. "Thank you, Anna." Something about the way he said her name sent a warm ripple through her chest, an unfamiliar feeling she promptly pushed aside. As the day wore on, Nathan regained a bit more strength. He could sit up, speak without gasping, even eat a little, but each movement still cost him pain. Anna insisted he rest, though he clearly disliked being helpless. Near sunset, she noticed him staring out the small window toward the road, as if expecting someone, or fearing they might suddenly appear. "You should sleep," she told him. "Can't," he muttered. "Not until I know they're not coming." She frowned. "You said they wouldn't." He exhaled. "I said I hoped." This time she didn't scold him. Something in his voice, tired, worn, almost defeated, told her the truth. Whatever happened to him before he reached her cabin, it wasn't random. It wasn't a simple fight or a wandering bullet. It was personal, and it followed him like a shadow. She lowered her voice. "Nathan, you can stay here for as long as you need. No one passes through unless they're lost." He looked at her sharply, surprised, almost suspicious. "Why would you offer that? You don't even know me." Anna swallowed. "Because you needed help," she said softly. "And because I know what it's like to have no one left." The words seemed to strike him harder than she expected. Nathan's jaw tightened, and for a moment she thought she saw something fragile flash across his expression. Regret, maybe, or longing. "Anna," he said quietly, "you don't know who I am." "No," she agreed, "but I know who you aren't. You aren't a man who deserved to die alone in the dirt." His breath caught. A strange tension filled the space between them. Warm, unspoken, but unmistakably there. He looked away first. As night fell, Anna lit the lantern. The shadows danced along the cabin walls, and Nathan finally leaned back, exhaustion claiming him again. She watched him as he drifted into sleep, this strange, wounded man the world had nearly claimed. She didn't know his story. She didn't know his family. She didn't know that somewhere, far across the plains, a millionaire rancher named Thomas Hale was offering a reward for news of his missing son. A son no one could find. A son whose trail faded near the old West Road. A son whose name was Nathan. But Anna knew none of this. All she knew was that a wounded cowboy with storm-gray eyes had come into her life, and somewhere deep inside her, a quiet spark had begun to form. A spark she had long believed was dead. Nathan recovered slowly, but each day brought small victories. On the third morning, he managed to sit upright without wincing too much. By the fourth, he took a few unsteady steps outside the cabin, leaning heavily on the doorframe while Anna hovered nearby, pretending she wasn't worried. His strength returned in pieces, like scattered fragments of a life he wasn't sure he wanted back. The land welcomed him with quiet familiarity. Wide skies, pale grass waving in the wind, the distant mountains painted blue by morning haze. These were sights he had always known. Yet standing here, on a small widow's farm that smelled of herbs and wood smoke, he felt something unfamiliar. Peace. Anna, however, never seemed to rest. She was always working, mending fences, feeding goats, hauling water, sweeping the porch, sewing patches onto clothes that should have been replaced long ago. She moved with a quiet determination, as if she had learned long ago that no one else would save her from hardship. Nathan watched her sometimes when she didn't notice. He admired the way she carried herself, head high, shoulders steady, even though life had given her every reason to bend. One morning, after seeing her struggle with a stubborn fence post, he finally said, "Let me do that." She frowned at him. "Your shoulder isn't healed. Still works better than that old hammer," he countered. Anna crossed her arms. "You'll tear the stitches." Nathan grinned, the first genuine smile he'd shown since arriving. "You can stitch me back together after." Reluctantly, she handed him the hammer. He fixed the post with slow, deliberate movements, careful not to strain the wound. When he finished, Anna stood quietly nearby, watching with an expression he couldn't decipher, part gratitude, part admiration, part something she didn't dare name. "You're stubborn," she said. "I've been told." "By who?" He hesitated. "People I used to know." The answer hung in the air like a secret refusing to settle. Later, when they shared breakfast, Anna finally asked what she had avoided for days. "Nathan, where were you headed when you were shot?" He didn't look at her. "Away." "Away from what?" Nathan's jaw tightened. "From a life I didn't want." "Is someone looking for you?" "Yes." The admission made her pulse skip. "Should I be afraid?" "No," he said firmly, meeting her eyes. "I'm not running from the law, if that's what you think." "I didn't say that." "You thought it." Anna looked down at her hands. "I've learned to expect the worst from strangers." Nathan softened. "Then let me be the exception." Those words settled heavily between them, not as a promise, but as a beginning. Over the next week, the rhythm of their days changed. Nathan helped where he could, feeding animals, chopping small pieces of wood, repairing tools with surprising skill. Anna taught him how to brew her herb remedies. He taught her how to tie stronger knots for the fence wire. They shared stories, small ones at first, surface level and safe. Anna told him about her husband, about the fever that took him, about the years after when surviving each winter felt like gambling with fate. Nathan listened with a quiet respect that made her feel seen instead of pitied. In return, Nathan shared fragments of his past, growing up on a ranch, breaking horses before he was 12, learning to read from a traveling schoolteacher who stayed all of 1 month, sneaking out at night to race wild Mustangs across the ridges. But he never mentioned his family in detail. Never spoke his father's name. Never explained the heaviness that crept into his eyes when he talked about home. Anna didn't press him, though curiosity gnawed at her. She sensed a wound deeper than the bullet hole in his shoulder, a wound shaped like betrayal. One evening, after a long day repairing the chicken coop, Nathan found Anna sitting on the porch steps. The sky was turning purple, and the first stars flickered into existence. He sat beside her, careful not to sit too close, though the part of him he rarely listened to wished he would. "You look tired," he said. "I could say the same." Nathan leaned back, studying the fading horizon. "I haven't felt this." He paused, searching for the right word. "Settled, in years." Anna's heartbeat stumbled. "You're healing," she said softly. "It's not just that." He turned toward her. "It's this place. You. The quiet. It feels like I can breathe here." Anna swallowed hard. "You can stay as long as you need." He nodded, though something in his eyes darkened. "I wish I could promise that." "What do you mean?" Nathan hesitated. His fingers curled against his knee. "There are things I can't outrun forever. My past, it'll catch up eventually." "Nathan," she said gently, "whatever you're hiding." "I'm not hiding," he cut in. "I'm trying to protect you." Anna froze. "From what?" He looked away, jaw clenched. "From the people who want me back. From the responsibilities I never asked for. From the life waiting for me once I'm strong enough to face it again." The confession stung in a way she didn't expect. "You're leaving," she whispered. Nathan's breath caught. "I don't want to." The wind picked up then, rustling dry grass and carrying the scent of pine from the distant hills. Anna looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the truth. He was a man torn between two worlds. One world was hers, small, quiet, poor, but filled with honest work and simple peace. The other world, whatever it was, held power over him, duty, burden, maybe guilt. Anna rose from the porch and wrapped her arms around herself, as though the evening chill had suddenly become too sharp. "Nathan," she said, barely above a whisper, "why were you running?" He stayed silent for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Finally, he spoke. "Because I didn't want to inherit something I never believed in." "Inherit?" She turned to him slowly. "Nathan, who are you?" He looked at her then, and for the first time since he arrived, nothing guarded his face. No walls, no half-answers. Just a man exhausted by the weight of his truth. "My father," he swallowed. "He owns more land than most small towns. Cattle, rail shares, money, influence, all of it." Anna stared at him in shock. "He wanted me to take over," Nathan continued. "Wanted me to be the man he was, but I didn't want that life. I walked away, and the men who found me weren't from the law. They were from him." Anna's breath caught. "Your father said men after you?" "To drag me home," Nathan said bitterly, "whether I wanted it or not." The revelation hit her like a physical blow. The dying stranger she had saved, the quiet, stubborn cowboy who repaired her fences and shared stories at sunset, was the son of a millionaire rancher. The revelation changed everything, and nothing at all. Because the man standing before her was just Nathan, just the man she had come to care for. Nathan exhaled shakily. "I didn't want you to know." "I can see why," she whispered. "Anna," his voice cracked. "I'm sorry." She looked at him, eyes soft but confused, wounded, uncertain. Because now that she knew the truth, something impossible stirred inside her. Sooner or later, she would lose him. The morning after Nathan confessed the truth about his family, the air felt different, heavier, charged with an unease that neither he nor Anna could quite name. The sky stayed gray all morning, and a restless wind swept across the plains, rattling the window shutters and stirring dust along the road. Even the animals sensed something. The goats stayed closer to the barn, their bleats sharp and nervous. Nathan paced the yard for most of the morning, restless as a caged Mustang. Anna watched him from the porch, her heart tight with worry. She didn't know what frightened her more, the thought of Nathan leaving soon, or the thought of the trouble he might bring if he stayed. By noon, Nathan finally stopped pacing and approached her. "Anna," he said, his voice low, "I need to tell you something else." She set aside the basket of laundry she was folding. "There's more?" He nodded. "When I left my father's ranch, I didn't just walk away. I told him I never wanted a piece of his empire. Never wanted his money, his power, any of it. I thought he'd let me go. But he didn't. He sent men after me, to drag me back, to make me understand I had no real choice." Anna swallowed thickly. "And those men? The ones who shot you?" "They weren't trying to kill me," Nathan said quietly. "They were trying to stop me, bring me in. But things went wrong. One of them got spooked when I tried to run. Bullet grazed my shoulder. I got away. And you ended up here," she whispered. Nathan nodded. "Your home saved me." Anna wanted to say something, anything, but the words tangled in her chest. She had never asked for his past. She only tried to save a man left to die on the roadside. But now the truth threatened the fragile peace they'd built. Silence stretched between them, until a distant sound broke it. Hoofbeats. Slow at first, then unmistakable. A group. Anna's breath caught. Nathan's head snapped toward the road, his entire body tensed like a man preparing for a storm he had prayed wouldn't come. "No," he muttered, "not now." How many? Anna whispered. Nathan stepped off the porch, eyes narrowed. 3 riders. Anna felt a cold wave wash through her. 3 men approaching her home. 3 armed men looking for Nathan. What do we do? She asked. Nathan turned to her, and for the first time since she met him, there was fear in his eyes. Not for himself, for her. You go inside, he said firmly. Bolt the door, stay out of sight. I won't hide while they— Yes, you will. His voice broke, raw and urgent. Please, Anna, if they think you're involved, they'll use you to get to me. Anna hesitated, torn between fear and the instinct to stand with him. But the look in Nathan's eyes, a mixture of protectiveness and desperation, made the decision for her. She retreated into the cabin, closing the door, but refusing to lock it. Her heart hammered in her chest. Outside, the hoofbeats drew closer. Through the small window, Anna saw 3 riders pull up near the fence. Rough-looking men, wearing dust-stained coats and carrying revolvers. The kind of men who took orders and enjoyed enforcing them. The leader, a tall man with a scar across his cheek, dismounted first. You Nathan Hale? He called out. Anna's breath hitched. Hale. So that was the family name she hadn't known. Nathan stepped forward without flinching. I told your boss I'm not coming back. The scarred man smirked. You said a lot of things, Hale, but you don't get to decide. Your old man wants you home. Not going to happen. The other 2 riders spread out, flanking Nathan. The scarred man tilted his head. You're coming with us, alive or half dead. Makes no difference to me. Anna's hands curled into fists. She wanted to run outside, to plead, to distract, anything. But she stayed where Nathan told her to be. Nathan squared his shoulders. I'm not going back to be his puppet. Scar Cheeks snorted. You think you're free? You walked out on the biggest ranching fortune in the territory. Your old man's not gonna let the heir to the empire wander around like some stray dog. Nathan clenched his jaw. I never wanted the empire. And that's the problem. The man gestured to the others. Grab him. Nathan moved first. Despite his healing wound, he fought like a man with everything to lose. He dodged the first man, delivered a sharp elbow to the second, and ripped the third man from his saddle. A punch, a kick, a desperate struggle in the dust. Anna watched, frozen with terror. Nathan was strong, but outnumbered and still weakened. One of the men struck him across the back with a revolver. Nathan collapsed to one knee. Something inside Anna snapped. She flung open the door and grabbed the shotgun her husband once used for coyotes. Her hands shook violently, but she stepped out onto the porch. Stop! She shouted. The men paused. Nathan's head whipped toward her. Anna, go back inside. She didn't. Leave him alone. He doesn't want to go with you. The scarred man laughed darkly. Lady, this ain't your business. It is now, she said, voice trembling but firm. Scarcheek took a step toward her. You wouldn't shoot. Anna cocked the gun. Nathan's heart lurched. Anna, please. But before anything else could happen, a new sound cut through the air. Another set of hoofbeats. Fast. Single rider. Everyone turned. A tall, silver-haired man in an expensive dark coat rode into the yard. His stallion gleamed, and he carried himself with the controlled authority of someone used to commanding entire towns. Nathan's face drained of color. Father, he whispered. Thomas Hale dismounted slowly, boots hitting the ground with a solid thud. His expression was unreadable. Not anger, not relief. Something far more complicated. Anna felt her breath freeze. This was the millionaire. And he had come, himself. The scarred man tipped his hat. "Mr. Hale, we were just—" "Stand down," Thomas said quietly. The tone alone froze all three men. "Now." They backed away immediately. Nathan stood, chest heaving, glare hard. "You didn't need to follow me." Thomas studied his son with a gaze sharp enough to cut steel. "You were gone for weeks. When my men found blood on the trail, I feared the worst. You sent them after me," Nathan spat, "against my will." "I didn't send them to hurt you," Thomas replied. "I sent them to bring you home." "I'm not a possession," Nathan growled. "I never wanted your fortune." A long silence followed, heavy, painful. Then Thomas's gaze shifted to Anna. His expression softened, not with warmth, but with something like realization. "You're the woman who saved my son," he said. Anna swallowed hard. "I only did what anyone would do." Thomas shook his head slowly. "No. Most would have left him for dead." Nathan stepped protectively between them, as if shielding her from his father's world. Thomas noticed. Something flickered in the older man's eyes. Understanding, perhaps even regret. Finally he spoke. "I didn't come to force you back, Nathan." His voice cracked faintly. "I came because I thought I'd lost you." Nathan stared, stunned. Thomas looked between his son and Anna. "If this is where you want to stay, I won't stop you." Nathan turned to Anna. She felt her heart twist painfully, because in that moment, she realized she wasn't afraid of the millionaire. She was afraid of Nathan's answer. When dawn rose over the quiet valley, the widow Anna felt a rare peace settle over her small cabin. The dying cowboy she had rescued, Elias, was now recovering fast, stronger every day. She had nursed him through fever, infection, and nights when he trembled from nightmares he never fully explained. But this morning, something was different. Elias was calm, thoughtful, almost burdened by a secret he had carried too long. Anna noticed it immediately. As she stirred a pot over the fire, she glanced toward him. He stood beside the window, gazing out at her modest land, the sagging fence, the patched barn roof, the lonely stretch of dry field. A place full of struggle, yet full of heart. "Anna," he finally said, voice low, "there's something I must tell you." She turned slowly. Elias had spoken her name before, but this time there was a weight to it, a seriousness that made her chest tighten. He stepped closer. "I didn't end up wounded in the middle of nowhere by accident. I was running, hiding." She didn't interrupt. Her hands stayed folded, waiting. "My father, he's wealthy, more than wealthy, a millionaire many times over." Elias paused to let the truth settle. "And I walked away from all of it." Anna blinked. She had suspected from his manners, his speech, his well-made boots, that he was not an ordinary cowboy, but the truth still stunned her. He continued, voice thick. "I never agreed with the way my father used people. He believed anything could be bought: land, loyalty, lives. When I refused to join his business, he cut me off. But when he heard I wanted no part of his land deals or his legacy, he sent men after me. You saw what they did." Her breath caught. That explained the bullet wound, the fear in his eyes, when she found him collapsed beside the riverbed. "I wasn't just injured," Elias said. "I was meant to disappear." Anna stepped closer. "And saving you put me in danger?" He hesitated. Yes. Something inside her twisted, not regret, but a sharp awareness that the world she lived in was far bigger and far more dangerous than her quiet widow's life had ever revealed. But Elias wasn't finished. "There's more," he whispered. "When I didn't return home for months, my father assumed I was dead, and when the men he sent didn't report back, he became worried. Then, furious, he hired more scouts. A private agency. They've been looking for me." A knock at the door interrupted them. A deep, commanding knock. Anna froze. Elias's shoulders stiffened. She stared at the door as it swung open slowly, revealing a tall, gray-haired man dressed in an expensive traveling coat. His sharp eyes scanned the cabin, and when they landed on Elias, something inside him broke. "Son." The word fell heavy, emotional, trembling with relief. Anna stepped back as the man rushed forward and gripped Elias's shoulders. "I searched for you for months. I thought you were gone." Elias didn't pull away, but his jaw tightened. "You sent men to force me home." "I sent them to protect you," the man replied quickly. "They were never meant to harm you. They disobeyed me. When I discovered what happened, I dismissed them all." The room filled with a thick silence. Anna felt as if she were intruding on a story older and deeper than she could comprehend. The father turned to her. "You saved my son's life. I owe you a debt I can never repay." He looked around at her humble home, her thin walls, her worn furniture. Understanding filled his expression. Elias stepped in front of Anna instantly. "She doesn't want your money. Don't insult her." Anna placed a gentle hand on Elias's arm. "Let him speak." The father nodded gratefully. "I came not only to find my son, but to make things right. Not with money alone, but with truth." Elias's confusion was obvious. "Truth?" The father took a shaky breath. "You left home because you believe my life had hardened me, and it had. But it hardened me because I lost your mother, and I feared losing you too." His voice cracked. "I did everything wrong, but I would spend the rest of my life trying to repair it." The son's anger softened, just barely. Anna watched the two men, one wounded by pride and fear, the other wounded by betrayal and assumption. They were more alike than either wanted to admit. Then the father turned to Anna again. "I can offer you protection, a livelihood, land, stability. My son owes you his life, and I owe you everything." But Anna shook her head slowly. "I didn't save him for reward. I saved him because he needed help." The father looked humbled, deeply. Elias stepped closer to her. "Anna, everything my father said is true, but what matters now is you. This place, your life." He swallowed hard. "I don't want to walk away again, not from him, and not from you." Her chest tightened. The words hit her deeper than she expected. "I know I have nothing," she whispered. Elias shook his head. "You have everything I never had. Kindness without condition, courage without demand, a heart that gave freely even when you had so little." He reached for her hand. "You saved me in every way a man can be saved." Anna's eyes stung. She had spent years believing she had nothing left to give the world. Not after her husband's death. Not after the drought that took her livestock. Not after the loneliness that nearly consumed her. But Elias saw her differently. And suddenly, she saw herself differently too. The father, still standing nearby, cleared his throat. "If you choose to join my son, either of you, you will have a home, not just land or wealth, but family. What I lost once, I wish to rebuild." Elias looked at Anna with a gentle, hopeful certainty. "This isn't about money. It's about choosing a life that isn't shaped by pain anymore. She held his gaze for a long, quiet moment. Outside, the light through the window spread warm and gold across the wooden floor. Anna finally breathed out, steady and calm. Then let's build something better, together. Elias smiled, a smile filled with gratitude, relief, and something deeper, something like love. And for the first time in years, Anna felt the future open before her. Not empty, not lonely, but full of possibility. A poor widow, a wounded cowboy, a broken father. 3 lives once shattered, now converging into something whole. The truth had changed everything, but it had also given them a beginning.